Welcome and thank you for joining us. My name is Sue DeCaro and I'm here with my good friend and colleague, Erin Taylor.
Hi.
Today we are interviewing this amazing woman who we have known for over 2 years. Her name is Sheila Wenger. Sheila is the mother of 10-year-old twins, a high school French teacher, a volleyball coach, and a PCI certified parent coach and instructor for the Parent Coaching Institute. The thread of passion that runs through all of her work is her commitment to her students and her children's mental and emotional well-being. She believes that healthy relationships are the cornerstone to building a healthy and thriving society, and all of her work is centered around supporting and building those relationships. Sheila, welcome. We're so excited to have you with us today.
Thank you, Sue and Erin. I'm happy to be here.
So let's talk a little bit about teaching.
Okay.
What strengths do you find most useful in teaching?
I find that really seeing every student as a special, unique individual is my greatest strength. So whether or not my students come with a great interest for my subject matter, there's always something valuable there for them. Because in the modeling that I do of kindness for every human being, of caring for not just the student but the whole person, how we treat each other, how we examine other cultures and how they might think about how to be a human being, those are always present in my classroom. So that's what I find is my greatest strength, because students who come to my class feel cared for every day, they feel seen, and they feel valued. And so whether or not they're in a place in their current circumstances where they're even able to fully grasp the learning process that day, there's still going to be something valuable that goes on in that classroom. So I'd say that that is my greatest strength. In terms of teaching content and making lessons meaningful, there are other strengths that come into play. Organization is key. I do a good job of planning lessons that will keep students engaged, even when they want to drift off. We'll get to that when we talk about classroom management, probably. But creativity in creating meaningful, valuable, and interesting lessons is always at the foundation of good teaching. But ultimately, what I feel my greatest strength is my ability to reach students.
Could I just say that you are a gift? As I hear you talking, you are a gift. Your students are incredibly lucky to have you standing in front of them, teaching them, and honoring who they are. You're a gift to teachers worldwide who could learn a lot from you. It's beautiful.
Thank you. It's incredibly meaningful work every single day, and it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time to prepare lessons in that way, but every day it feels like it is worth it. It is really, truly worth it.
Well, you can see the passion that you have for this job, clearly. So what would you say is something or things that you're trying to create in each and every one of your students? What do you try to create in your students?
I would say that, we, in the population where I teach, we have a lot of low-income students. We have a lot of people who come and don't have all their basic needs met. So their hierarchy of needs is not met all the time. And so I have to know that going in. I know that relationships are primary, and building relationships with them first is going to help fill up their hierarchy of needs so that they're more able to learn. So, as a classroom teacher with 30 kids in a class, the amount that you can truly reach them, it might be small, but it's still incredibly important, and I never forget that. So I greet them every day. I call them by name. I ask how they're doing. I also tune into how they normally are as students. So if they're acting differently than they normally do, that is an opportunity for me to reach out to them and connect and find what they're needing. So if a kid's got their head down and they're not participating, rather than getting frustrated with them for not learning, I will say, please see me after class, and we will have a 5-minute conversation. This just happened recently with a boy who was exactly what I said. He was not participating. He was head down. He would, if I called on him, he'd give me a look, you know. And I just called him over. And I said, well, what's going on? You're not yourself today. And he said, I'm tired of school. I'm tired of people telling me what to do. I'm just really struggling. And I just, you know, connected with him. I said, well, I understand. We all feel that way at times. And I just want you to know that I care first and foremost about you and how you're doing, you know, health-wise and mentally health-wise. And is there anything that I can do to support you to make it easier? Are there people you'd rather sit by? Or is there something I'm doing in the way that I'm teaching that's making you feel more this way? So that skill of not having to be the sage on the stage, but that we are in constant relationship, and if something's going on that is impacting the child, it may not have anything to do with me, but if it does, I want to help. And the most valuable thing that came out of that experience was his seeing that I'm a human being who cares about you as a human being. Mm-hmm. Let's see what we can solve together. And ever since then, it's been better. Every once in a while, he'll have a day like that, and I touch bases with him, but it hasn't been consistent. Consistently, I think he just felt heard, seen, and valued enough that sometimes with teenagers, you know, all the stuff that they're struggling with, that can help them make it through, you know.
Mm. That's amazing. Dan Siegel, his work, you know, with looking at the whole brain of the child and all the developmental aspects that they go through, and he came up with these 4 S's of attachment, that children need to feel seen, soothed, safe, and secure. And really, you met all of those needs for that student in that conversation. Mm-hmm. That's really.
And teenagers need it too, you know.
Desperately.
Yes.
It is teenagers. Mm-hmm. Because they're now coming to a stage and age where they are thinking critically about the adults in their lives. Mm-hmm. They might not have had the most healthy influences, and now they have the brain that can process that critically. Mm-hmm. If that's the stage that they're looking at, and the adults around them are presenting that same front that isn't what they're needing, and that's where they get that everywhere they turn, then the one teacher who can make that connection and help them see that their opinion matters, their feelings matter, what they're struggling with matters enough to be heard and seen, that might be the first inroad to being seen, secure, what you just said.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. That is just so beautiful. So I think I already know the answer to this, but I'll ask you anyway. What is the most rewarding thing for you as a teacher?
I think it's the growth of kindness. I think kindness growing. For example, I'm thinking of a student named Enrique who he stormed out of my class 3 times in anger. And he has struggled to grasp the material. But through connection and kindness and a message, not hidden, but a continuous message delivered that I always respect you, I care for you, and I want you to do well, that has helped him overcome some anger issues. So he has grown to where he's academically still struggling, but he has overcome his anger, at least in my classroom, where he will always speak with me respectfully. He will solve problems with me together before just storming off. And this is a kid who I happen to know is definitely struggling with anger issues. So the constant opportunity for kindness, modeling it, trying to set up opportunities for kids to experience it, exposing them even to films where they are seeing a beautiful message of kindness and its power. I think that's the most important. That's the most valuable, most rewarding.
It just makes me think about humankind, that it's being seen, being heard, being valued, and that kindness, isn't that what everybody wants? All human beings, adults and children? So, you know, it's such a great thing to be able to model that to these children, that it sounds like they so need someone in their life who has that connection with them and can show them kindness and you know, what value looks like and how it plays out in that connection. Just
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting to even say that's the most rewarding, most valuable, and most important, because when you look at how time is spent as a teacher, teachers spend so much time doing other things, you know, but they all orchestrate to provide the backdrop for that kindness to come out. I mean, you still have to come up with good lessons. You have to come up with a good plan to keep people engaged.
Mm-hmm.
You have to create the comfort for them to be able to converse and work with the other people in the classroom. You have to facilitate the opportunity for safety, security within the context of learning. So you're doing a lot more, even though it looks like you're doing so much academic planning. If you do that well, you are actually supporting and serving the whole child.
That's beautiful. So what would you say are the 3 biggest challenges that you encountered during the school year, or so far during the school year, in your position?
Great question. I think the first one that comes to mind is, you know, these kids reach me when they're 14, 15, and 16. So the habits that have been laid down in their lives prior to coming to me,
Mm-hmm.
You know, if parents have done their job, those kids will know what it is, what's required to learn well. My kids don't necessarily all come to me with that. That's a challenge. They struggle. They have not been even set up with proper school supplies, many of them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an obvious challenge. The second one I would say is that across this country, schools everywhere must get cell phones out of the way.
Agreed.
They're so attached to their devices that unless a school has a very clear policy that is consistent across the board, every teacher is having to invent the wheel on that. Become for adolescents, because they are so tied to those phones that they feel entitled to have them with them at all times. And in our school, for example, we have the right to take them away, but when we do, we get pushback.
Mm-hmm.
So an academic environment needs to set up standards about that and consistently enforce them. That's the second challenge. The third one, I would say those are really the two biggest ones. There's not a third one that's coming to mind that ranks with those two.
Okay.
Well, that screen time issue is definitely, I mean, across the board, from young to old, children of all ages and adults too. I mean, learning how to live having a healthy relationship with technology is, I think, the challenge for all of us from this day forward.
Absolutely. And it's also, it can hinder, if there's been a lot of overuse and misuse, it hinders the child's ability to be in the discomfort of thinking.
Yes.
They feel uncomfortable because they always have something from the outside to stimulate them. So the actual academic rigor of, here comes my cat, the actual academic rigor of thinking and processing, they're not used to it. A lot of them are not used to that challenge.
Mm-hmm.
That's significant.
So let's talk a little bit about classroom management, because I'm thinking about, you know, managing the technology, managing the hierarchy of needs in each child, and, you know, one of them might have come full, having a nice meal, nice breakfast, a nice conversation with their mom. Another one might not have eaten since yesterday. So how do you manage all those different needs at the different levels, and then the screens, and then the curriculum requirements you have to meet? How do you manage all of those moving parts in one room in a short amount of time?
That is the magic of being an amazing teacher. Amazing teachers can do that, but it's not easy. It is not easy. I think the first thing is being very, very clear about what your objective is for the day. What do you want your students to have? What do you want them to learn? What do you want them to experience by the end of the day? And that becomes paramount. That is first and foremost what needs to happen. And then within that, you know, the careful planning so that it flows in a way where everybody feels cared for, seen, valued, safe. All those things have to happen as well. So my number one strategy is keep them engaged. If you're keeping them engaged, they are learning. They don't have any opportunity really to go to that phone. They don't have an opportunity to really socialize and go off topic. So it is keeping them moving. So in a foreign language class, that's fairly approachable, because if they are using the language, they're having to do so much with all 5 senses in order to be able to use it. So you know, I moved from having them do a kind of TPR thing where they have to try to figure out what I'm saying, and then as soon as they have enough to figure something out, then I put it on them, and I'll do some kind of choral response, and I'm walking around the room the whole time. So body proximity is also huge. I'm never in one spot so where the people far away from me can tune out, because they know I'm coming and they know someone's going to be accountable. So we do, you know, some choral things, and then as soon as that, then we go to one. I'm going to pick one person. Then it's a partner thing, and I let them know that they practice with their partner because I'm going to be calling on them. You know, so it's always this. If it's a verbal lesson in particular, there's always an accountability of what we're doing. I'm going to be asking you about. We're going to be using it, so get ready. And you know, checking in with students that they're doing. I'm listening to what they're saying to see if they're getting it. So body proximity is huge. The way that you plan the need for participation. And then if they have a task, and a more independent task, setting up the parameters for what are the expectations, what are the norms, what exactly will you be assessed on in this material, and how will you be assessed. So they're really clear on, okay, this is where we're going, this is what I'm supposed to be able to figure out, and in this chunk of time you should get from this point to this point. They really appreciate that structure. They appreciate knowing what the expectations are and what's reasonable and what's not, and then just never sitting in my desk. When they're working, I am coming around, listening, checking, pointing out things. Oh, check number 5 again. I see something there, but not telling them what. You know, those are some tricks of the trade, but also setting up the expectations from the beginning of the year. Now, for high school students, oftentimes that first day they go to every class and every teacher talks about teacher expectations, and I don't do that the first day. I get them engaging with each other the first day, and I use the excuse of we're going to be talking and taking risks with each other all year, so we have got to get comfortable with each other. So I do a bunch of lingering activities where I might just teach them 1 or 2 phrases. How do you say, what's your name? And then they have to do an activity where they have to use what's your name, and they have to, you know, ask 5 or 10 people, get to know a few people. Then we learn a little bit more, and we can say something about something you love to do. So you're using the language or whatever curriculum you have to build relationship at the beginning so that they realize, I'm going to have to take risks here, but I'm doing it, I'm cared for, I'm safe in doing it, we're all in this together. So that builds that community from the beginning, the kindness from the beginning, and also you're using your content to do it.
It's clearly obvious that you spend a lot of time preparing for your class. I mean, with classroom management and how well you are moving around and creating, you know, all those different activities and different ways to teach your class, it's very clear that you spend a lot of time on behind the scenes, you know, and bringing that passion that you have that, again, is also very clear, bringing that to life. So it's, if I were back in high school, I would take French and I would want you as my teacher.
Yeah, definitely it is a lot of hours.
Yeah.
But it's really wonderful when it comes together and they're getting it and they're enjoying getting it, and then you realize, okay, all those hours were worth it.
Yeah, heartwarming, I'm sure. So in addition to being a teacher, you're also a PCI certified parent coach, and an excellent one at that, let me stress. In working with the parent community, what is the most difficult or challenging part of that job?
I think probably the biggest challenge in parent coaching is we all have blind spots. We all have things we just can't see. And we're the red in the rainbow. We just can't see that there's red because we're it. And helping to expose that blind spot to someone in a loving kind of way so that they can see it and not feel threatened.
Mm.
So what I have to do in working with parents is normalize. There's not a parent walking around who doesn't have a blind spot. Those blind spots are there for a reason because none of us are perfect. And we might be looking through the lens of, I need to do this better than my parents did, so I won't do A, B, and C, or D. And there might be something about B or C that would be a good parenting practice, but because of our past, we've shut off the possibility of seeing that as a good thing. There are a number of ways where we get blind spots developed, but the hard part is luring gently a parent to have that realization for themselves that, okay, there is a new territory I could enter here, and exposing that blind spot with so that they discover it themselves and that they don't feel threatened in seeing it.
Mm. It's beautiful.
It is. Is there anything that you could change about teaching? If you could change anything, what would you like to change?
Oh boy, let's see. Well, okay, I guess what I would say is I think that our culture has gotten pretty loose about what it is to learn and to teach. And I think that if we had some agreements about what really good learning looks like, and then we had the ability then to get the obstacles out of the way of what it requires. We have common agreements about that. For example, I think school uniforms would be a blessing in nearly every community. It would save people money. It would break down barriers of socioeconomic differences. Mm-hmm. And it takes one more thing away that students are thinking about that's getting in their way of learning. That's something that, these are some conservative principles, and I'm not necessarily conservative in general, but if we could agree what helps learning happen and then enforce some of those things across the board, it would help a lot. I think that in my school district we are a forward-moving district on the map in the nation for being technologically advanced. Our students have iPads, and we get lots and lots of training on how to use different apps and things in the classroom, and that's fantastic. But to do that in a proactive way, we need to establish protocols for how that technology is used and when it's not appropriate and when it's used inappropriately, what to do about it, so that students are clear. When they know what the expectations are going in, then they can conform to what's going to help them learn. And at this point, there just is a lot of freedom allowed that's getting in people's way. So I would like to see those policies tighten up. That's clear.
I think that's a really good point. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a point that can apply in any facet of life. If you gain clarity about where it is you want to get to, then you can start to understand and recognize what roadblocks might be in your way to getting to that goal. And then you can start doing the work to remove them so that you can get to your goal. I mean, isn't that apply in every facet of our lives?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you reminded me of one other thing I'd change if I was in charge of the school. I would see teachers respected. Sue, you mentioned how much time I must spend planning my lessons, and you're right, I do. But a lot of times the teaching profession isn't totally respected for how much time and energy it takes just to teach well. So if we don't have the support of administration to handle for example, for them to be a backup if there are discipline issues with students, then we're spending all of our time managing that instead of planning the teaching. So there needs to be support of teachers to allow them the time to create great lessons, and plan for wonderful classroom management strategies and all that.
Well, support for teachers, I think we can all get behind that, because teaching is one of the most honorable professions there is, in my opinion. And to work for people like you who work to positively impact the life of a child is making a difference for the future of all of us. And so I say let's all get behind teachers and support them in any way that we can, because it is a very honorable profession.
Yeah. By and large, people go into it for the right reasons. So you have good people in those classrooms. They just need to be empowered to do the best they can.
And supported in every way possible.
Yes.
So I think that's a good point to wrap up on. And Sheila, I want to thank you so much for hanging out with us and chatting with us today and sharing your wealth of knowledge and wisdom about how to move about in a classroom, keeping every individual student's unique personalities in mind and finding ways to reach them and make those deep, lasting, life-changing connections with them. It's just amazing. I wish you could be in every classroom in the country and the world, actually.
Me too.
Very much. It's great to talk with you both.
So, Sheila, if someone wanted to reach out to you to find out more about your parent coaching business, or if they're looking for some kind of guidance for if they're a teacher themselves, where could we send them?
My email address, you can find me at theparentpartner@gmail.com. That would be great for email, or my website is www.theparentpartner.com.
Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much for spending this time with us and sharing all of this wonderful information with us. We know that you're going to help teachers everywhere.
It's my pleasure, and thanks for the great work that you're doing in the world.
Thank you.
Thank you.